Captain Maya Chen brushed a strand of hair from her face, eyes burning from 36 hours without sleep. The Vorlef transmission had triggered emergency protocols across all United Systems outposts, and as Earth's foremost sino-linguistic intelligence officer, she'd been sequestered in this windowless bunker ever since. "Play it again," she ordered, and the AI obliged. Supreme Commander Zix's message flickered before her once more. The translation matrix had refined the alien's chittering speech into something comprehensible, but couldn't soften the cold certainty behind the words. "Your expansion stops now. Your surrender will be total. You have 30 days. Resistance means extinction." Chen paused the frame on the Vorleth ruler's face, if you could call it that. 6 compound eyes arranged in a hexagonal pattern, mandibles that clicked with precise, mathematical intervals. Everything about their physiology screamed ordered evolution, right down to the symmetrical placement of their ceremonial armor. "Cross-reference all known Vorleth military encounters," she said. "Focus on tactical anomalies." "Processing." The AI responded. "Anomaly detection complete." Result: 0 tactical anomalies found. That was the problem. From first contact 8 years ago, through every minor skirmish since, Vorlef ships followed perfect formations. Their responses to human maneuvers were textbook, predictable, almost algorithmic. Too perfect, too predictable. Chen's terminal chimed with a new intelligence packet. The Ganymede outpost had captured a damaged Vorleth scout vessel 3 months ago. The crew had collectively ingested poison rather than face capture, but the ship's logs remained partially intact. As she scrolled through the data, a pattern emerged. Every Vorleth action required confirmation codes from superior officers. Every decision, no matter how minor, flowed through a rigid chain of command that ultimately led to the Supreme Commander. Outside her office, the Security Council debated hopeless strategies. Earth's combined fleet was outnumbered 8-1. The lunar defense platforms, impressive as they were, would fall within hours against a determined Vorleth assault. But what if they didn't need to win conventionally? Chen activated her neural link to the war room. "General Santos, I need immediate clearance to access classified file Omega 917. Denied. Captain, that's well above your..." "Sir, with respect, I believe I found a critical vulnerability in the Vorleth command structure." Silence filled the channel. Then, "You have 5 minutes." 4 minutes later, Chen stood before the assembled Security Council, her discovery projected for all to see. "The Vorleth aren't just hierarchical," she explained, highlighting command pathways from the captured data. "They're pathologically dependent on central authority. Their entire military operates as an extension of Supreme Commander Zix's will." Admiral Kagawa frowned. "You're suggesting their fleet would be compromised without their leader." "I'm suggesting they be paralyzed," Chen replied. "Their training doesn't account for independent action. There's no evidence they've ever operated without direct command authority. And how does this help us survive an armada that outguns us at every level?" asked the Chinese representative. Chen took a deep breath. "Because we don't need to defeat their armada if we can capture their commander." The room erupted in disbelief. "Impossible. The Vorleth homeworld is the most heavily fortified system in known space." Chen waited for the voices to quiet. "Impossible by conventional means, yes, but we have something the Vorleth have consistently failed to account for in their strategic calculations." "And what's that, Captain?" asked President Adayemi. Chen smiled for the first time in days. "Human audacity, sir. They expect us to either surrender or mount a traditional defense. They'll never anticipate us bringing the fight directly to their sovereign." As murmurs filled the room, Chen pulled up the personnel file she'd been saving for precisely this moment. A disgraced former Special Forces operator whose career had ended after he'd disobeyed direct orders to save civilians. "And I know exactly who can lead the mission." Jackson Reed stood motionless before the one-way glass, studying the holographic projection of the Vorleth homeworld. 3 ringed moons orbited the azure planet, each bristling with defense platforms. The room smelled of coffee and desperation. 16 separate security layers, he mused, fingers tracing the projected orbital paths. Automated response systems, gravitic mines, patrol patterns that never repeat. Can it be done? Chen asked from behind him. Reed turned, the scar tissue along his jaw tightening as he smiled. No. General Takeda cursed. Then why are we wasting? It can't be done conventionally, Reed clarified. Your stealth tech, your weapons, your tactics, they're all designed to fight wars, not pull off heists. He approached the table where Earth's most advanced prototype lay covered under a carbon fiber tarp. With unexpected gentleness, he pulled it away, revealing a vessel unlike any in Earth's fleet. Matte black, with strange curves that seemed to bend light around its hull. The Nightshade, Chen explained. Developed using recovered Talaxian phasing technology. Theoretically undetectable to Vorlaf sensors. Theoretically, Reed repeated, running his hand along the ship's surface. And completely untested against actual Vorlaf defense grids. Takeda's patience visibly frayed. Mr. Reed, either tell us you can do this or stop wasting our time. Reed looked up, eyes cold. Do you know why I was discharged, General? Insubordination during the Europa relief mission. You disobeyed direct orders. I was ordered to abandon 37 civilians when atmospheric conditions changed. Command decided the risk to my team outweighed civilian survival probabilities. Reed's voice remained perfectly level. Do you know the name of the officer who gave that order? The room fell silent. You did, General. And I refused. Reed let the words hang. Yet here you are, asking me to follow orders on a suicide mission. Chen stepped between them. We're asking you to lead it, not follow. There's a difference. Reed studied her for a long moment before turning back to the projection. The Vorlaf installation on their third moon has a maintenance cycle. Predictable, like everything they do. 7 minutes every 42 hours when their primary sensors recalibrate. He expanded the projection, highlighting a narrow corridor between defense platforms. We can exploit that gap. The timing has to be perfect. We'll need a pilot with reflexes fast enough to thread that needle. We have someone, Chen said. Lieutenant Amara Singh, 3-time solar racing champion before she enlisted. Reed nodded. Once we're through, we'll need to acquire Vorlaf transport identification codes. Their ground forces don't question authorized vessels. Their hierarchy doesn't allow for it. He began assembling a team on the display. A biosignature specialist, a quantum communications expert, 2 infiltration specialists, a demolitions engineer, a xenolinguistics officer, and a combat medic. This isn't just about getting in, Reed continued. It's about getting out with high-value cargo that doesn't want to be taken. We'll need specialized containment for a Vorlaf physiology. Already in development, Chen assured him. Reed turned to face the assembled officers. Let me be clear, most of us won't make it back. But if we succeed, Earth survives. He expanded the personnel files, studying each candidate's psychological profile. I need volunteers with nothing left to lose. People who understand that this isn't about their survival, but humanity's. You have them, Chen said, sliding a data chip across the table. All have agreed, knowing the full risks. Reed inserted the chip, faces of the volunteers appearing around him. His expression softened briefly at what he saw. Each had suffered personal losses to Vorlaf aggression during border skirmishes. Family members, homes, futures. When do we leave? He asked. 14 hours, Takeda replied. The Vorlaf fleet is still mobilizing. Our window of opportunity is narrow. Reed looked once more at the impossibly fortified Vorlaf homeworld, then to the faces of his volunteer team. Then we'd better start breaking some rules. The Nightshade shuddered as Lieutenant Singh guided it through the narrow gap in the Vorlaf defense grid. Inside the cramped hold, Reed and his team braced against bulkheads, expressions tense in the dim red emergency lighting. Proximity alert, Singh announced, her voice unnaturally calm. Patrol vessel changing course. Intercept in 60 seconds. Specialist Yusuf Kazim, their communications expert, didn't look up from his console. Sweat beaded on his dark skin as his fingers danced across adaptive interfaces. Standard ID ping incoming. Their systems are probing us. Can you block it? Reed asked. Kazim shook his head. Blocking would confirm we're hostile. I need to answer with something they expect. Chen moved beside him. What about that supply transport signature we intercepted near Proxima? Expired 3 days ago. They'll know it's compromised. Not if we're running late, Chen suggested. Vorlath's supply chains are rigid. If we claim mechanical issues delayed us, they'd follow up with maintenance command. Kazim finished her thought, already coding a response. Unless we corrupt part of the transmission, make them think the communication error is on their end. Reed watched as Kazim's fingers flew across the interface, embedding subtle errors into the Vorlath authentication protocols. The specialist wasn't just masking their signature, he was making it appear that the patrol vessel's own communication array was malfunctioning. Sending modified response. Now. The ship fell silent as they waited. The proximity alert continued its warning pulse. They're changing course, Singh reported, disbelief in her voice. Returning to patrol pattern. They're also filing a maintenance request, Kazim added, monitoring the Vorlath communications. We just bought ourselves 8 hours before anyone realizes there was no equipment failure. The relief in the compartment was palpable but short-lived. As the nightshade descended through the upper atmosphere, the stealth field began to fluctuate. Field integrity dropping below 60%. The ship's eye warned. Atmospheric composition contains trace elements not accounted for in original calibrations. Reed turned to Dr. Eliza Okafor, their xenobiology specialist. Options. She studied the atmospheric readouts. The particulates are organic, pollen from native vegetation. Our field wasn't designed to account for biological interference. Time to full visibility, Reed demanded. 3 minutes, maximum. Singh interrupted. Ground control is requesting visual confirmation before landing clearance. They'd anticipated this. The Vorlath used visual markers to identify authorized transports, patterns invisible to human eyes, but clear to Vorlath compound vision. Deploy the mimetic hull adaptation, Reed ordered. The outer skin of the nightshade rippled, microscopic programmable matter rearranging to match the recorded pattern of a Vorlath supply vessel. It wouldn't fool their sensors for long, but it only needed to work for visual confirmation. Pattern deployed. Singh confirmed. Landing coordinates received. The ship descended toward a massive crystalline structure. Not the central command hub they'd originally targeted, but a secondary processing facility on the outskirts of the capital. Change of plans, Reed announced. We're too exposed here. We need to go dark and move underground. Specialist Miranda Torres, their infiltration expert, pulled up schematics they'd extracted from captured Vorlath data. Maintenance tunnels connect all major facilities. Less security, but also less space to maneuver if we're compromised. Reed studied the network of tunnels. How far to the command center? Approximately 7 kilometers. Mostly straight paths, but we'll have to cross several security checkpoints designed for Krell maintenance workers. The biocloaking mesh should mask our signatures, Dr. Okafor said, distributing gossamer thin covers that would bend light and heat around their bodies. But it won't fool direct observation. We'll need to time our movements between patrol cycles. As the ship settled onto the landing pad with a gentle thud, Reed checked his team one last time. 8 specialists chosen for their unique skills, each carrying minimal equipment to avoid detection. Remember, he said quietly, we're not here to fight a war. We're here to end one before it begins. Move like ghosts, stay in formation, and if anyone is compromised, we continue the mission, Chen finished. No matter what. The Nightshade's hatch hissed open, revealing the alien world beyond. The maintenance tunnel stretched before them, its walls lined with pulsing bioluminescent conduits that bathed everything in an eerie blue glow. Reed signaled a halt as a shadow moved ahead. Their third Vorleth patrol in as many hours. We can't keep avoiding them, Torres whispered once the danger had passed. At this rate, we'll never reach the central hub. Reed was about to respond when Chen raised her hand, head tilted toward a faint sound echoing through the tunnels. A rhythmic scraping, like metal on stone, growing closer. Positions, Reed ordered. The team pressed against recessed maintenance alcoves, weapons ready. Around the corner emerged not a Vorleth patrol, but a solitary figure, taller than a human but considerably smaller than the Vorleth. Its body was slender and articulated like an insectoid mantis, with 4 upper limbs and 2 lower. What caught Reed's attention was the creature's eyes. 6 multifaceted orbs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The alien froze, maintenance tools clattering to the floor as it finally noticed them. Before it could react, Torres had it pinned against the wall, blade at what they hoped was a vital area. "Wait," Chen commanded, stepping forward. "Krell biosignature. This is one of their engineer caste." The Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly in what their translators identified as a fear response. "You, not authorized personnel, not maintenance, not security. We're not here to hurt you," Chen said, gesturing for Torres to lower her weapon. "We need information." The Krell's eyes rotated independently, scanning each team member. Humans. Impossible. This sector death forbidden to outsiders. Chen reached slowly into her pack, extracting a small holographic projector. "We come from here." She activated it, displaying a rotating image of Earth. "We're here because the Vorleth threaten our world." The Krell's posture changed subtly. "Vorleth threaten all worlds. Always have. Always will. Not if we succeed," Reed said, stepping forward. "We're here for Zixther." The maintenance alien went utterly still, appendages rigid with shock. "Supreme Commander. Impossible. Blasphemy to even speak of such action. Yet here we are," Chen replied. She hesitated, then added something that wasn't in their mission brief. "The Vorleth conquered your people, didn't they? Forced you into servitude." The Krell's eyes dimmed. "Many generations ago. Before memory. We exist to serve. On our world," Chen continued, "many societies once enslaved others. But we learned that diversity, different ways of thinking, living, governing, makes us stronger, not weaker." The alien studied her with renewed intensity. "Deception. No unified species survives internal difference." Reed caught Chen's strategy and played along. "We argue constantly. Different nations, different beliefs. Sometimes we even fight. But when threatened, we stand together. Not because we're forced to, but because we choose to." The Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly in what their translation software couldn't interpret, a concept outside its linguistic database. Finally, the alien spoke. "Follow. Unsafe here. Patrol returns soon." It led them deeper into the tunnel network, eventually stopping at what appeared to be a dead end. With practiced movements, it manipulated hidden controls, revealing a chamber beyond the false wall. Inside, 3 more Krell looked up in alarm. "Brothers," their guide announced, "I bring impossible things." The chamber was cramped but secure, filled with salvage technology and hand-drawn diagrams of Vorleth installations. One wall displayed unfamiliar symbols etched into metal plates. "Our true language," the first Krell explained, noticing Reed's interest. "Forbidden by Vorleth. Punishable by dissolution." Another Krell stepped forward, its carapace bearing intricate patterns that suggested greater age. "I am Nexuvor, memory keeper of unbroken line. Why do you seek Supreme Commander? Truth only, or no help given." Reed and Chen exchanged glances. The mission parameters called for absolute secrecy, but they needed allies. "To end a war before it begins," Reed finally answered, "not through surrender, but by removing their capacity to command." The Elder Krell conferred with the others in clicks and movements too fast for the translators to process. Finally, Nexuvor turned back to them. The Unbroken have waited 12 generations for such opportunity. The alien retrieved a crystalline data storage device, security protocols, access routes, commander movement patterns, all we have gathered, hidden, protected. Chen accepted the device carefully. Why help us? We could fail. The consequences for you. Because you chose to come here, Nexuvor replied simply. Choice is what Vorloth took from us. Choice is what we would see return to all. The Grand War Chamber pulsed with ceremonial light, its crystalline architecture amplifying every sound. From their hidden observation point above the chamber, Reed watched as thousands of Vorloth military commanders assembled in perfect geometric formations. At the chamber's center stood an elevated platform where Supreme Commander Zixther would soon appear. Neural security grid active. Taurus confirmed through their encrypted comlink. Primary entry points are triple sealed. Backup plan compromised. Reed bit back a curse. The Krell intelligence had been accurate in most details, but they hadn't accounted for the ceremonial war declaration protocols. Additional security measures had been activated specifically for this event. Time to Zixthar's arrival, he asked. 6 minutes, Chen replied, studying the chamber through specialized optics. Once the ceremony begins, we'll have approximately 20 minutes before they initiate fleet movement protocols. Kazim's voice crackled through their comms. Team 2 reporting emergency. Vorloth security drones detected our power tap. They're initiating a sector-by-sector sweep. Half their team sealed off in a different section of the complex, their diversion strategy falling apart before it began. Options, Reed asked, voice level despite the unraveling plan. Chen lowered her optics, expression changing in a way Reed had learned to recognize. The look of someone about to propose something dangerously unorthodox. We walk in the front door. Reed stared at her. Explain. The Krell provided 3 environmental control uniforms, she said, gesturing to the maintenance garb they'd acquired. With Dr. Okuffer's biosignature dampeners, we could pass visual inspection as Krell attendants. That's suicide, Torres objected. No, Reed said slowly, understanding forming. It's precisely what they won't expect. The Vorloth security algorithms are designed to detect intrusion, not authorized presence. Chen nodded. Their psychology can't conceive of enemies standing in plain sight. The only Krell allowed in the chamber during ceremonies are environment regulators, responsible for maintaining optimal atmospheric conditions for the assembled commanders. Reed calculated rapidly. 3 of us go in as Krell. The others maintain position to secure our extraction route. Dr. Okafor produced 3 devices resembling thin silver discs. These will mask your biosignatures, but they're experimental. Effective duration unknown. What about Team 2? Torres asked. They proceed with the modified diversion, Reed decided. Not in the outer sectors as planned, but right here, adjacent to the ceremony. He outlined the revised plan quickly. Team 2 would trigger environmental system overloads in neighboring sectors, forcing security protocols to split focus. Meanwhile, disguised as Krell maintenance workers, Reed, Chen, and Torres would enter the chamber directly. When the moment came, they would converge on Zixther. This is still a one-way trip, Reed reminded them. Before anyone could respond, a rumble shook the chamber. Distant at first, then growing in intensity. That's not us, Kazim said, voice tight with confusion. Team 2 hasn't initiated yet. A second explosion followed, then a third, coordinated detonations rippling through the outer districts of the Vorloth capital. Through their observation port, they watched Vorloth commanders shifting in confusion, their perfect formations wavering. The Krell, Chen breathed in realization. Nexuvor said others would hear the song of defiance. They're rising up. Reed didn't waste the opportunity. Masks on. Move now. The biosignature dampeners activated with a faint hum, bending light around their bodies and altering their thermal signatures to match Krell physiology. Through the haze of the devices, Reed's teammates appeared as shadowy approximations of the engineer cast, their movements awkward but passable under duress. They emerged from maintenance access points directly onto the chamber floor, adopting the subservient posture they'd observed in Krell workers. Around them, Vorlef commanders were receiving urgent communications, many already leaving to address the growing chaos outside. The ceremonial tone sounded, a bone-vibrating harmonic that announced the Supreme Commander's arrival. From a hidden entrance opposite their position, Zixther emerged, flanked by elite guards with crystalline weapons that hummed with energy. Reed caught Chen's eye across the chamber floor. Torres was already positioned near the commander's elevated walkway, her disguised form adjusting environmental controls with methodical precision. As Zixther began the ritual speech, Reed activated his neural link to Team 2. All units, execute now. The chamber's lights flickered, then died completely. In the momentary darkness, chaos erupted as security protocols initiated emergency responses. When auxiliary lighting activated 3 seconds later, Reed was already moving, not away from the Supreme Commander, but directly toward the alien ruler. Zixther's compound eyes widened, mandibles clicking in an expression no human had ever witnessed from a Vorlef. Pure, unfiltered shock at the impossible. Atmospheric stabilizers failing, announced the transport's AI as Chen piloted the stolen Vorlef vessel through a narrow gap between crystal spires. Behind them, Vorlef interceptors closed the distance, their weapons systems charging. In the cargo hold, Reed secured the restraints on their captive. Supreme Commander Zixther had not spoken since the abduction, compound eyes fixed on Reed with unreadable alien intensity. "They're targeting our propulsion system," Torres warned from the tactical station. "Trying to disable rather than destroy us." "Of course they are," Reed replied, returning to the command deck. "They won't risk harming their leader." Chen's hands danced across unfamiliar controls. "That advantage disappears the moment we clear atmosphere. Their orbital platforms won't show the same restraint." Through the viewports, Reed could see the Vorlef capital in chaos. The coordinated Krell uprising had spread through multiple districts, overwhelming the rigid response protocols of the security forces. Fires blazed in the administrative sector, and the massive monument to Vorlef evolutionary supremacy, a spiraling crystalline structure over 300 meters tall, had partially collapsed. "Kazim, status on Team 2," Reed demanded. Static hissed through the comm for several seconds before Kazim's voice broke through. "4 survivors at Extraction Point Delta. Heavy Vorlef presence between us and them." Reed studied the tactical display. Their planned rendezvous point was compromised, and the surviving team members were pinned down. "New course," he ordered. "Sector 12G." Chen looked up sharply. "That's directly through the heaviest defenses." "Exactly why they won't expect it," Reed confirmed. "And it puts us within reach of Team 2. The transport banked hard, acceleration compensators struggling to adjust as Chen pushed the alien vessel beyond its design parameters. Behind them, 3 interceptors failed to match the maneuver, crashing into architectural elements of the city. 2 others maintained pursuit. "Incoming transmission," Kazim reported, from Vorlef High Command. Reed nodded. "Put it through." A harsh, chittering voice filled the command deck. "Return Supreme Commander immediately. Compliance will earn merciful termination." "Generous," Reed muttered. "Tell them we'll consider their offer while they consider ours. Call off pursuit, or we jettison their leader into the upper atmosphere." Chen shot him a look. "We wouldn't actually." "They don't know that," Reed interrupted. "Right now, unpredictability is our best weapon." The communication remained open, filled with the sounds of frantic Vorlef discussion. "They're uncertain," Kazim translated, monitoring the subharmonic frequencies. "The command structure is fracturing without Zixther's direct authority. Different faction leaders are issuing contradictory orders." The ship rocked as a glancing shot struck their port stabilizer. Warning indicators flashed across the control panels. "We can't take another hit like that," Chen warned. Through the viewport, Reed spotted the collapsed building where Team 2 had taken shelter, surrounded by Vorlef security forces. They had one shot at this extraction. Specialist Petrov, Reed called over the comm. Are those plasma charges still operational? Affirmative, came the demolitions expert's terse reply. But we're pinned down. No clear path to deploy them. You don't need one, Reed said. Deploy them right where you are. Maximum yield, 30-second delay. Silence filled the channel. Sir, that's an order, Specialist. Give your teammates time to reach the roof. We'll make one pass, fast and low. The comm went silent for several seconds. Then, understood, sir. Charges set. 25 seconds remaining. Reed turned to Chen. Get us into position. One chance only. She nodded grimly, bringing the damaged transport into a steep dive toward the besieged building. On the tactical display, the pursuing interceptors adjusted course to match. 15 seconds. Petrov's voice came through, strained but steady. The transport shuddered as another shot grazed their hull. System warnings cascaded across the control panels. Structural integrity compromised. The AI announced, landing gear inoperable. We're not landing, Chen replied, hand steady on the controls as she brought the vessel into a hover 10 meters above the rooftop, where 3 figures had emerged, carrying a fourth between them. 5 seconds, Petrov counted. Her voice was absent from the group on the roof. The surviving team members leaped for the open cargo bay, as a blinding flash erupted from the building below. The shockwave caught the transport, sending it spinning, but Chen fought the controls back to stability as Torres secured the hatch. 3 recovered, Torres reported. Specialist Petrov remained to ensure detonation. Reed closed his eyes briefly. Another name for the memorial wall. Another sacrifice to complete the mission. As they accelerated toward the upper atmosphere, Reed noticed Zix there watching him. The alien's posture had changed subtly, head tilted in what might have been confusion. You honor your casualties, the Supreme Commander spoke finally, translator rendering the clicks and vibrations into human speech. Inefficient, irrational, human, Reed corrected, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. Captain Chen found Zix there studying the makeshift memorial the crew had created. A simple wall panel where they'd etched the names of their fallen teammates. The alien ruler stood motionless, carapace reflecting the dim emergency lighting that now powered most of the damaged vessel. Your species displays mourning rituals even during combat operations, Zix there observed without turning. Evolutionarily disadvantageous. Chen approached slowly, conscious of the unprecedented nature of this conversation. The first prolonged diplomatic exchange between a human and the Vorlath supreme leader. We don't see it that way, she replied. Remembering our losses reminds us what we're fighting for. Zix there's compound eyes shifted, focusing on her with unsettling precision. And what are humans fighting for, Captain Chen? The question surprised her. All intelligence suggested the Vorlath viewed other species as resources to be managed or threats to be eliminated, not entities whose motivations merited understanding. Survival, she answered honestly. But not just biological continuation. We fight for the right to choose our own path, to remain diverse and unpredictable, even when that's messy. The Supreme Commander's mandibles clicked in what the translation software interpreted as contemplation. Inefficient, the Vorlath achieved dominance by eliminating variance. One command, one response. Perfect execution. Perfect execution of flawed orders still leads to failure, Chen countered. She retrieved a data pad, activating a historical archive. We've been down that path ourselves. Images flashed across the screen. Earth's own history of empires, dictatorships, and authoritarian regimes. Civilizations that prized order above all else, eventually collapsing under their own rigidity. Before we reached the stars, humans nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times, Chen explained. Each time, it was our diversity, of thought, of approach, of governance, that allowed some portion of humanity to find a better way forward. Zix there moved closer to examine the historical footage. Yet you still wage war. You still inflict suffering. Your own historical records confirm this. Yes, Chen acknowledged. We're not perfect. We don't claim to be. The difference is we remember our mistakes and try to learn from them. The ship shuddered as damaged systems struggled to maintain life support. On the bridge, Reed and the surviving team worked frantically to plot a course that would evade the pursuing Vorleth fleet, which had split into competing tactical groups without their leader's unified command. Why not eliminate me? Zixthar asked abruptly. Your mission succeeded. My death would destabilize the Empire for generations. Chen studied the alien carefully. Because that's not who we choose to be. We didn't come to assassinate you, but to show you there's another way. Before Zixthar could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Chen hurried to the bridge, the Supreme Commander following under escort. Multiple fleet signatures, Torres reported. A Vorleth battle group has broken formation and opened fire on other Vorleth ships. On the main view screen, they watched in astonishment as Vorleth vessels turned weapons against each other. Tactical data scrolled across auxiliary screens, detailing the unprecedented fracturing of the Empire's military cohesion. This is Commander Velthrak of the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. A transmission cut through their communications array. We demand direct evidence of Supreme Commander Zixthar's continued existence. Failure to comply will result in continued enforcement actions against rogue elements. Another faction is jamming their transmissions, Kazin reported. The command structure is completely fracturing without central authority. Zixthar moved forward, mandibles clicking rapidly in what might have been distress. This is impossible. The chain of command is absolute. Not anymore, Reed replied, turning from his station. Your empire is facing something it's never encountered, genuine choice. Different commanders are making different decisions based on their own judgment. Chaos, the Supreme Commander said. Freedom, Chen corrected. Messy, dangerous, but necessary for growth. On the tactical display, another alert appeared. A transmission from Earth's Security Council, acknowledging their mission success and providing rendezvous coordinates. The final phase of their desperate plan was unfolding. Zixthar watched the competing Vorleth factions tear at each other, then turned to Chen with an unfamiliar gesture, upper limbs spread wide in what might have been surrender, or perhaps openness. Show me, the Supreme Commander said, this better way you claim exists.